that should be it.
We're live?
Yes, we're live.
Awesome.
Yes.
Welcome to Blockchain Professionals May 2020. This is our third online meetup. I hope everybody been well. I'm really looking forward to having in-person meetups again soon. And it looks like that's going to be sooner rather than later in Australia. I have 4 people on the call today. They are Jess Oswald, Mark Yorke, Xinji Wang, and Lucille Greff. Welcome, everyone.
Hello.
Hey, guys.
Thanks
for having us.
How about we go around the room so you can introduce yourselves?
Sure. Who wants to go first?
Well,
Mike, do you want to go first?
Yeah, go on then. I'll do it. Hey, everyone. So I'm Mike Yorke. Hopefully we'll have met quite a few of you at a number of meetups over the last couple of years. And I co-hosted a meetup as well last August with Sam Brooks from Block 8. So hopefully saw a few of you there. I work in our blockchain team at EY in Oceania, and primarily lead a lot of the stuff that we do on the East Coast. So we're a team spread all over the country. So we've got our leader, who's Scott Waller, based in Perth, a couple of the team members over there, and then a few of us based in Sydney as well, and across Melbourne. So I won't say too much because the floor tonight is mainly for Lucille and Xinyi, who I will let themselves introduce themselves now.
Thank you, Mike. So my name is Lucille Greff. I'm a senior consultant for EY in the program management team. And I joined Sydney 1 year ago. And before, I used to work in financial services in France in consulting on the launch of mobile banks with fintechs. And I used to work with BNP Paribas, which is a French bank, on the challenges of retail banking with blockchain technology. And since I joined EY, so last year in Sydney, I've been working on different projects, and I joined the Oceania core blockchain team. Xinyi, it's your turn.
Thanks, Lucille. And thanks, Adriana, for having us. This is pretty exciting for me because it is my first Sydney Blockchain Professionals meetup. I arrived in Sydney 2 months ago. About 2 months ago now. Literally snuck in like right before Australia closed its borders. So that was pretty lucky on my part. I came from the US, if you can't tell from the accent. So looking forward to exploring Sydney and Australia once everything's opened back up. But so far, I've mostly just seen the inside of my house and the inside of my nearest Coles. But yeah, hopefully once the lockdown is lifted and we can have these meetups in person, I'll get to meet all of you guys in person. That'll be pretty exciting.
A lot of fun.
I know. I've heard. So I'm a risk specialist here at EY Oceania in the blockchain group. Which basically means, I help our clients identify the risks that they have in their business from just utilizing blockchain technology, whether that's, operational, business, technical, from all different perspectives, and then help them implement solutions to mitigate those risks. So prior to coming to Sydney, I was in the EY San Francisco office, also doing risk, but with more of a focus on financial services organizations. So, wealth asset management firms, banks, fintechs, etc. So, looking forward to today's talk.
Awesome, Jess. It's you next.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. So my name's Jazz. I have a legal background in this kind of area. So that's how I met Adriana, was through my work at KWM, where I worked in derivatives, blockchain, fintech, and all that kind of stuff as a law clerk. And I'm currently working in policy at the moment at Fintech Australia, which is Australia's leading industry body representing fintechs. I come at this from the perspective of someone who's interested in how the law works in regards to all this kind of technology, and also, I guess, really enjoying the blockchain aspect of the fintech industry in the country. Yeah.
Which is the best part of the fintech industry.
Yeah, of course.
much for being here tonight. And welcome, Xinyi, to Sydney.
Thank you.
Indeed, looking forward to meeting you in person soon. Couple of announcements before I hand over to you and Lucille. Thanks Edge Wallet for sponsoring us. Please go check their app. If you don't know how to set up a wallet to manage your coins, we had a really great meetup last week. That's also on the channel. Go watch that. This week, I'm taking part on other 2 events. On Wednesday evening, Women in Blockchain, Chloe White, Leanne Camp, Katrina Donaghy, and I are unpacking the National Blockchain Roadmap, which I'm a member of the committee. So that's going to be a good one. We'll pop the link on the description after this. And on Friday is the launch of the planet-wide SOS Hackathon that's being organized by Crypto Chicks in Canada and DAOstack. Participation is free. Teams are forming this week. There's a lot of online events. Just go check it out. Should be awesome. Last time I saw some stats, there were only 6 people from Australia. So this is your chance to get in there and get hacking, to come up with good solutions, to move the planet post-COVID. I don't know what that means, but hey, I guess we can find out together from Friday. And lastly, please pop your questions on the chat. We're gonna ask them at the end. We're gonna let Xinyi and Lucille do her whole presentation, and then we can just bombard them with questions at the end. All right, girls, take it away.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, Adriana.
Thanks.
Yeah, so you've got EY people talking today, and we will be talking about EY because EY recently held its annual Global Blockchain Summit about a month ago. And every year it's always really good content, but this year in particular, I found really interesting because it was kind of us coming out as a firm very strongly, very firmly behind public blockchains, and kind of use this summit as a way to sort of explain to the public why public blockchains will and need to prevail over private blockchains for enterprises. And let me go ahead and start sharing my screen. Please let me know if you can see it.
Yes.
Yeah? Awesome. Okay, so let me just pop over. Yeah, so this is just a slide with some of the stats from the summit. So we had almost, close to 3,000 attendees, had, lots of different speakers from Microsoft to Gemini to Coinbase to Consensus. And this just sort of goes to show the scale of the summit and us using this as a platform to really make our case for, why companies should go and lean towards public blockchains. So you can also, by the way, the whole summit is on YouTube. I think you can probably just Google or type into YouTube the Global Blockchain Summit for UI, or later on I can show you where to get to that link through blockchain.ui.com. Okay, so sort of a high level overview of what we're going to do today is we're going to do a briefing of the summit, starting with why EY sees public blockchains as a future, and then dive into sort of what EY has been doing to allow companies to transact with privacy and security on public Ethereum. And then finally, we'll do a demo of blockchain.ui.com, which is where all of EY's blockchain tools and applications are housed. Okay, so back in November of last year, EY commissioned a study looking into sort of why companies are using blockchain, how are they using blockchain, are they using public or private blockchains, and we got a lot of interesting data out of that. And some of that was, first of all, we found that today's blockchain projects are still mostly private. And we also found, and you can look at the chart on the right of this screen, we found that basically like no one is really in a consortium. And then for the people who, for every one company who join another network, that's 2 companies who have started their own network. And so if you do the math on that, it ends up on average with like public blockchains having 0.5 participants, excluding their own founding entity. So it's not really possible to build that network effect that you really need for blockchains to really deliver on a private blockchain. So interestingly enough, we also asked a lot of companies who had done private blockchains in the past what they were planning on doing in the future. And the stats came out with like overwhelmingly, they said that public blockchains were where they were heading for the future. So I think it was like 75% of these companies who had tried building public blockchain or private blockchains in the past, saying that public blockchains were in their future. So it was good to see these numbers because it really backed up what we as EY have been saying for years. So obviously, as a company, you can't really transact on the public network without having privacy and security of your data in place. So this is where I'm going to hand it over to Lucille to talk about the baseline protocol.
Thank you, Xinyi. Thank you, Xinyi. So let's deep dive into the baseline protocol. So if you have any question, please feel free to submit it to the Q&A. So as you may already know following this presentation, we think that the future of blockchain is public. And so I will present what is baseline, how it works, and then how to get involved. So first of all, what is baseline? So the future of blockchain will be public. And last year, Microsoft, Consensus, and EY met together to find some solutions around public blockchain, around security, privacy, data integration, scalability, and governance. And they launched a proof of concept called Radish 34, which is at the origin of the baseline protocol. In a nutshell, we can say that the baseline protocol is a way to use public blockchain, but in a private manner, using some libraries, some specific frameworks as packages. How it works. So to answer these challenges with public blockchain, so for example, privacy and security, this baseline protocol really helps companies just to interchange data in a private manner. For scalability, this architecture is more flexible, so it enables to have a more flexible solution compared to one solution, unique solution fit for purpose. Also, in terms of data integration, it's much more consistent in the way it shares the data with external data system. And it's much more a good single truth of content as it uses smart contracts. So now how to get involved. So it's pretty recent because it was released in March 2020. So we have a great website. The platform is not ready yet, but on this website, you will be able to access all the information regarding the baseline, the code, Radish 34, and there is a great community. So if you want to be involved, if you want to be updated about this project, please feel free to join the community. Thank you.
Yeah, and I just pulled up the website here. You can access the code here in GitHub. It's not so you can look and access the code here. And kind of like what Lucille mentioned, everything with baseline, it's open source, it's community led, and this is pretty typical of how we as EY operate in terms of working towards building the community. And we put a lot of things out as open source. We put it in the public domain, sometimes with no license at all. Okay, so jumping really quickly to EY OpsChain. So I wanted to talk about UI OpsChain because it is the first solution that's really being built on the baseline protocol. And it's this UI blockchain enterprise SaaS platform, so you can subscribe to these different business applications. It uses the latest advancements in zero knowledge proofs. It's also built. It's also the first version of OpsChain that can serve both public and private blockchains with the same code base. And this, essentially, what is OpsChain? OpsChain is this UI solution for allowing companies to reflect their business processes on the blockchain. And you can see here on the slide, it's got this UI OpsChain core, which is the set of tools like tokenization, smart contracts, this sort of hybrid art infrastructure that sort of acts as an intermediary between public and private networks. And then like around this UI OpsChain core, you've got all these different applications like supply chain and procurement, traceability, public finance manager, etc. And I'll go through all these different applications really quickly later on, but I wanted to really focus on the procurement aspect and the procurement module of UI OpsChain. There we go. So one of the main ways that non-financial companies interact with each other is through procurement, and it's really complicated, right? It's constantly changing. If you're a buyer, you've got to keep track of so many different things. So you've got to keep track of the total volume of what you're purchasing. You've got to keep track of how much you're spending, the aggregated spend. And lots of times, if you've got subcontractors doing the buying, part of the buying for you, you have to keep track of this without disclosing the volume totals that you're to your subcontractors. So how do you do that? And how do you get the correct pricing if the pricing is based on your volume and your subcontractors doing that buying for you? How do you keep track of all of that without disclosing sensitive information like the discount table to your partners? And then finally, on top of all of that, how can you easily add and remove authorized buyers from a contract? So the OpsChain network procurement is kind of our answer to all of these questions. What you'll see here is, there we go. You've got this. So you've got this lead buyer, you've got a lead seller, and they'll negotiate this agreement with the volume, the discount table, the authorized buyers, authorized sellers, all of that. And we are able to take these really complex agreements between these different parties and reflect them as this digital, this privacy enabled, baseline compliant smart contract on the public Ethereum network. And then once you have that, it's pretty easy from there on to sort of add and subtract other players like own subsidiaries, authorized buyers, and then if you're on the distributor side or on the seller side, you can, there we go, you can add and subtract different authorized distributors as well. So the entire buying network can keep track of their procurement spend. And what you get from this is this end-to-end procurement workflow from RFP issuance to settling payments, all on the Ethereum mainnet. And that's essentially the vision behind UI OpsChain procurement network. Okay, so we have a pretty awesome, in my opinion, pretty awesome use case of network procurement, which was done in partnership with Microsoft. So Microsoft has this, obviously, everyone knows Microsoft Xbox. And on the Xbox platform, Microsoft has thousands of different partnerships with developers, with publishers, with designers, with production houses, all these different creators that use their platform to create content. and Microsoft needs to manage all these different relationships and pay royalty to all these different partners. So it's pretty complicated for Microsoft to manage. And what we were able to do was we use OpsChain Network Procurement, and we're able to shift all of Microsoft's paper contracts to the blockchain. So now it's, smart contracts are used to calculate the royalty payouts for all of Xbox's or Microsoft Xbox partners. So when we did this, the numbers that we got from the results were pretty staggering. So, you go from 45 days needed to calculate, the rights and royalties owed to, less than 4 minutes. So that's, more than 99% reduction time needed. The cost to administer this whole system went down by 40%. And then just overall, like across the board, you've got more transparency, more more trust between the different parties. Everyone understands what's going on both sides. Everyone sees the same information, sees the transaction log, sees the business logic. And that just leads to less litigation and less time spent on litigation. Okay, so going back to this slide, just wanted to really quickly touch upon the other OpsChain applications. So we already talked about supply chain and procurement, traceability. So the traceability module basically lets companies have more visibility into their processes. So, one of those applications is for preventing fraud. You can give customers, like your end customer, more access to the information that you've captured. And then for the public finance manager, this one is pretty interesting because we've done a use case actually here in Western Australia. Well, here in Australia, in the Western Australia with their school system, with the Department of Education there. And essentially what's going on with PFM is it's a way to allow governments allocate taxpayer resources more effectively. So like the whole point of government, or not the whole point, but one of the main jobs of governments is to allocate spending, right? And like they want to know how to do that the most effectively. And it's really hard to sort of understand as a government, what am I spending my public money on? How am I spending that money? Why am I spending it? Like what impact am I as a government having on the society through this public spending that I'm doing? And these questions just get harder and harder to answer when you have money leaving sort of the control of the government, which is what happens more and more often because governments, performing some of these functions through contractors. And so when they leave sort of government control, it's harder for them to manage, it's harder for them to keep track of how that money is being spent. And so to sort of understand and have more transparency into the system, that's where PFM sort of comes in. And like I said, we've done a use case with this already in Western Australia. And then jumping to intercompany. So the intercompany module, large enterprises, they do more transactions internally than they do externally, right? So the intercompany module lets you record, intercompany loans, automate intercompany expense allocation, and just do more transaction analytics. Tesseract, that's this mobility platform letting you have more different and disruptive new business models. So for example, you can have like fractionally owned cars where the car, the connected car like lets the smart contract know of journey details, and then the user is charged a fee based on like the journey duration or distance. And then maybe owners receive a portion of that fee based on how much they've invested into the vehicle. And then contract manager and tax engine, those, contract manager, disrupts the way contracts are defined and executed. And then tax engine, it embeds tax calculations and payment options into the business transaction flow. Okay, so that's EY OpsChain in a very large nutshell. Let's switch gears slightly and jump to blockchain.ui.com if I can exit my slides. Nope. There we go. Okay, awesome. Okay, so this is EY blockchain.ui.com, where EY's suite of blockchain tools and applications can be accessed. And right, so here you can see where you can access the Blockchain Summit replays, and then if you click here, you can that takes you to the link to learn more about the baseline protocol as well. So right now we have the smart contract testing tool that's in beta testing. But pretty soon we're going to be adding a lot of other functionality to blockchain.ui.com. You'll be able to get the UI, blockchain analyzer explorer, which is this web-based tool for exploring and visualizing the sort of entire history of on-chain data. And it also lets you search for specific transactions. And then also the EY blockchain analyzer tax calculator, which currently is very America-centric. It's very US. It follows only US tax rules right now. So it calculates capital gains and losses that come from investments in cryptocurrencies. But we are planning over time to support other countries' tax rules as well. And then over the next few months, we'll just be moving a lot of things onto blockchain.ui.com. So eventually OpsChain will also be on here as well. So just keep on checking back over the coming months, and you'll see more stuff pop up on here. Okay, so jumping into the smart contract and token review tool. Also, I didn't mention, but you can sign up for your own account on blockchain.ui.com. I've just already logged into mine. So this tool is a way to review ERC compliant smart contract code, and it doesn't replace you doing like a manual code review, but it does check for a lot of things. It checks for, I think 250 different tests on the code. So what you can do here is you have 4 different input methods. You can enter the code directly here. You can choose from a list of tokens that we already have. You can choose from any of these ERC20 tokens. You can extract from mainnet address here, or you can also upload a Solidity file directly. So I'm going to just select from a list of tokens today. I'm going to do, you know what? I'm going to do USDT. Okay, so I've chosen this. It should pre-populate. Yep, all the source code is in here. And then you just click scan, and it'll do the run all those tests against that smart contract. And give it a moment. There we go. Okay, so you've got these 5 different tabs here. You've got the overview tab, which just gives a summary, a high-level summary of all the different the results of the tests. You can see, if you click into these, like you can see what the test was. So we looked here at ERC, whether USDT is ERC20 compliant. This test shows that it actually has failed this. But if you click into it, you can just get more detail on like what this test was performing, and then see what the recommendations are. And then here you can see there's also just some information on like some of the risks that were brought up with this test. Ooh. And then, yeah, so if we click on functionality, sorry, I'm gonna tickle in my throat. I'm gonna get some more water. So functionality is testing to see what, like whether, sorry guys, what's going on? Testing. Okay, hopefully that's better. So functionality, we're testing to see if the smart contract is doing basically what the user thinks it's doing. So is it, if it says it's ERC 20 compliant, is it actually ERC 20 compliant? Is it meeting all the all the requirements of ERC 20 compliance? So you can click on here and see like what the test was performed, and obviously you can see the results from those tests. You can go into security. This is pretty self-explanatory, just checking to see what the vulnerabilities are in the code. You know, it runs like a bunch of different security tests on here. You can look into that. And then for quality, so this, you know, low code quality equals higher chance of bugs, right? So what the quality tests are doing is it's looking to see if the code, you know, follows best practices. Is it documented well? And it just sort of automates the process of identifying code quality issues. And then finally, with efficiency.
Xinyi, do you want me to sub in?
Yes, please. Oh my
Yeah,
God,
yeah,
what's
okay,
going on with my voice?
All good. All right, I'll take the easy bit at the end. So yeah, efficiency is pretty straightforward as well. This is running a few basic tests to see if your smart contract code functions are actually written in the way that minimizes gas usage to achieve what they're supposed to be doing. So this one, as you can see, there's less tests on here than the rest. This one's slightly harder to define what the most efficient function path necessarily is, particularly as contracts get more complex. But this one, it's a good test just to see, you know, are people going to be spending more than they actually need to execute on this? And if you want to just scroll up, Xinyi, I mean, this is probably most of the functionality covered off. I think for anyone who was at ETH Sydney back in August, you would have watched me fail miserably on this thing 3 times because it had just been launched. But fortunately, it is now working and it's been live for probably 6 or 7 months. As Xinyi mentioned, this one, yeah, this has been going for a while, but off the back of the summit, there's at least 4 more modules, I think, that are getting launched in the next 4 to 5 weeks. Don't quote me on that because sometimes these things do get pushed back a little bit. But yeah, we've got some other stuff coming up like the blockchain analyzer. As Xinyi's mentioned, we've got a stablecoin attestation module as well, whereby you can do a live tracking of assets backing an actual stablecoin if you have access to the API that tracks the asset backing itself. Yeah, also the tax calculator, and then over time, more and more of the OpsChain modules are going to be published on blockchain.ui.com as well. So I suggest, yeah, with this site, get yourself an account, keep checking back in, see what's on there. Yeah, there's links to the Reddit page, there's links to the GitHub. So if you guys want to get involved on that side of things as well, it's all there. But this going forward is going to be our kind of portal to release a lot of the things that we're working on to the community and to the world. So yeah, keep checking back in.
Thanks, Mike.
All
Thanks
good,
for subbing in. Hopefully that's the end of that, whatever was going on there. Anyways, yeah, Mike pretty much just wrapped up our demo of blockchainui.com and, you know, our smart contract testing tool. I think, yeah, we're ready to jump into questions now. If you have any questions about what we've covered, you know, about the smart contract testing tool, about what we spoke about previously, just please throw them out onto YouTube.
There's one question already from
Yes.
Ryan Chris. He asks, how do you overcome the issue of getting all parts in your supply chain being participants of OpsChain? Is that even necessary?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
How do you overcome issues of getting all parties in your supply chain being participants on OpsChain?
I'm happy to take this one, and I see that Scott as well has put a couple of comments on the YouTube channel. If anyone can't see that, it's worth opening that up. So OpsChain is built on top of the public Ethereum network. So in terms of proprietary software and that kind of thing, there's the only thing that is required to interact with it is a wallet. The wallet that we're using for OpsChain 4.0, which is where we're at now, is MetaMask, and the roadmap would be to integrate more wallets. So it's not like some kind of rogue wallet software no one's heard of before. It's pretty popular software. So, you know, our vision is pretty bullish on public Ethereum, as has been mentioned a few times. So we strongly believe that enterprises will have access to wallets in the future, because supply chains will be managed through a combination of likely ERC20 and ERC721 tokens, and potentially some other ones as well, depending on if any other frameworks kind of come forward on top of those two. So we would expect that a lot of people will have access to that software anyway.
Is there a question from Adriana? Is there any plans to have OpsChain integrate with other blockchains, like as long as they are on the ERC20 standard?
Happy to take this one as well, guys. If I do know that so we do at a kind of global level, every 3 months we do an assessment of essentially whether we believe that Ethereum is still going to be the front runner in terms of the public blockchain space. I don't know exactly what goes into that assessment criteria, but I know that it is regularly checked, and the reasons that we're going with Ethereum at the moment is just because of the breadth and depth of the community behind it. And currently, you know, with the smart contract functionality, it does what we need it to do and what we believe, or where we believe the value from public blockchains comes from. So if down the line it turns out that another protocol starts to surge in popularity and starts to surpass Ethereum, there would be a fair bit of work to be done to then transition onto that, but it's something that we're aware of, and it's kind of all your eggs in one basket, but just keep another basket spare just in case you need to start shifting your eggs around.
My line of thinking here is like Xinyi's line had one party on this side, one party on that side, and OpsChain in the middle, like connecting both. And like in a great future, this side and this side could even be on different blockchains, and OpsChain is just connecting the information between them. And it doesn't matter if it's Ethereum, Algorand, even Bitcoin blockchain, as long as the standard is there, there should be, I think, a way of connecting them. More an observation, like pipeline dream for blockchain stuff, interoperability. Are there other questions?
Yeah, definitely.
I don't see any other on the channel. Jazz, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I was just thinking about, I'm not sure if this is strictly within your scope of use cases, but for example, if you were to have some kind of financial market or something where people are trading assets P2P, if you have like a fat finger error or someone sends too much money, for example, do you have a mechanism to reverse that? Or are we just kind of sticking with the traditional means by which you litigate or something like that?
That's a good question. And short answer is I'm not too sure.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that's definitely something that's being considered and that's being considered.
Yeah, because blockchain is essentially built on the concept of immutability.
Yeah.
And immutability in a way is inherently, like it doesn't function with that kind of certainty that you need in financial markets, particularly where you need that consumer protection. So I was just wondering if you guys had a mechanism or something like that, because in traditional markets at the moment, you have things like, T+3 settlement times, or you just litigate if you're not happy with how the other party is behaving. So yeah, I just thought if you had a solution.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point. And like I said, I'm not too sure if that's something that's been considered by UI at the moment, but yeah, definitely something to think about if we haven't already.
Oh, thanks.
There is something that we've been working on. It's been in development for quite a while now, and I must admit I've not heard anything about it for the last probably 2 or 3 months. But it's something called DiePack, which is something that you can integrate into a ERC-721 token. That essentially allows you to, so if you had minted asset-backed tokens that were then stolen or were lost, what you can do is die those tokens, kind of like how you would die stolen cash in real life. Those tokens are then essentially removed from the system, and then you can mint and reissue the same tokens that covers that kind of theft issue. I mean, I don't know if that's specifically targeting like a fat finger error. I'd probably say that when it gets to that, then you start to look at other controls, maybe off chain, that would prevent that, or at least mitigate that if that actually occurred. Yeah,
that's very interesting.
Yeah, that one, the DiePack, it's interesting because what it's doing is it's marking almost the tokens that weren't stolen instead of the tokens that were stolen, so that now you know which ones are like the like under the the correct ownership.
Right.
2 questions from the chat. One from Tristan Wiesel. Is OpsChain open source? I think you answered that at the beginning. But the answer is yes.
OpsChain is not available yet. The baseline protocol is open source. A lot of what UI has put out there is open source. Like baseline is open source. Nightfall is open source, but I don't believe OpsChain is yet. It's not at the moment.
So how does EY monetize OpsChain services? That's Ryan Chris's second question.
Mike, is that something that you can speak on?
Yeah, I won't say too much. Couple of high level things is your usual kind of software licensing, and as Xinyi mentioned, OpsChain is not open source yet. I think over time there will be more elements, but again, don't quote me on that. And then the second is also just simple like implementation and support. How, like, if we're onboarding clients onto this stuff, helping them set up their controls frameworks around how they use blockchain technology, we've got a whole lot of expertise in that area, and so we can help out there. But ultimately, the more people that are using public blockchains, the more we benefit as well. So it's well within the incentive to help out the community and get everyone using this stuff. So it's definitely a win-win. It's not a zero-sum game. Yeah. Okay,
so this is a question that I would like to hear from the 3 of you, actually. So as far as outcomes go, let's say from now to the end of the year, what would you see like happen for EY blockchain stuff? Where would you like this ecosystem to be looking at the end of 2020?
Good question.
I'll go last on this one.
I think we're already on a very good track. I think what I am curious about, I think what Xinyi now wants to see, that would like to know that Xinyi in end of 2020 would know, is how what role has EY played, especially with all this, COVID stuff going on? Like, what role has EY played, like, in sort of monitoring and like managing COVID testing? There's a lot that we're doing right now, and I think just having that information, that's definitely like the main thing that I'm curious about to see with EY moving forward.
Yeah, I feel like people. So I started to get a personal interest in blockchain in 2016, and I feel like since then people have been even more interested into the technology. So many things happen in the meantime. Now with the COVID, I feel like, from my gut feeling, that people are getting much more interested in this kind of emerging technologies just to find some solutions. So I'm pretty confident into the rise of awareness and the rise of use cases around the technology by the end of the year. Let's see how it goes.
Yeah, I think probably success for EY would be drastic uptake of the Ethereum blockchain at an enterprise level. I think that would be one. So having a lot of enterprises starting to see past the risk and see the benefit in actually adopting public blockchains, which we've just not seen at scale yet. And then obviously the success from EY from that would be that if OpsChain was a key driver of that. I think ultimately being part of some really like awesome product implementations that are backed by something like OpsChain or that EY is involved in would be a great ambition. I mean, from a personally selfish point of view, being involved in a product that was going to go global that was built on Ethereum as part of EY would be an awesome thing. So yeah, I think it's just getting more and more people onto it, and then ultimately realizing a massive reduction in waste that currently happens when companies work together, and ultimately blockchain can be a solution to cutting a lot of that waste.
That's interesting. I just had an idea. Maybe you guys should jump on the SOS hackathon and show, your solution there. People might use it to build their projects over the next few weeks. That'll be cool.
We'll have to check the details out, but I'd definitely be keen for sure.
Awesome. All right, Jess, any more comments from you?
No, I don't think so. It's all been fairly comprehensive.
Awesome. Let me see if there's any other questions from the chat. No, we are all there. There's some chatter, but no questions. Thanks, guys, for chatting on the live stream and posing the questions for us. Any other thoughts from you guys before we wrap up?
I think I'm good.
I think I'm good. Thank you, everyone, for attending this new meetup.
Yeah, thanks, Adriana, for having us and letting us steal the floor for this month.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys, and welcome, Xinyi, to Sydney.
Thank you.
We'll meet soon in person. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Remember, I'm going to post the links for the hackathon and for the Women in Blockchain meetup right after this, and we will see you again next month.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you next
Thanks so much, guys.
See ya.